Montana Territory, August 1876. The river had just started to recede from its summer peak when Zadie Orwood lost her wedding ring in its cold, rushing water. She gasped as it slipped from her finger, the gold catching the sunlight one last time before vanishing beneath the current. She dropped to her knees on the muddy bank, hands groping through gravel and water, her breath coming quick and sharp. "No, no, please, no," she whispered, as if pleading would bring it back behind her, boots crunched over dry grass. "You all right there, miss?" a deep voice asked. She turned, pushing damp hair from her face. The man standing a few paces away had a rifle slung over his back and dust on his hat brim. He looked like he had ridden a long way without rest. Broad-shouldered, sun-browned, with a scar along his jaw that looked older than his boots. His voice had concern in it, not curiosity. "I dropped my ring," she said, the words catching in her throat. "It was my husband's. He passed last spring." The man stepped closer, crouching beside her. "I am sorry for that," he said. "Let's see if we can find it." She blinked at him. "You do not even know me," he shrugged. "Still seems wrong to walk away when someone is hurting." She watched as he plunged his hand into the river without hesitation, fingers digging between rocks and moss. "What is your name?" she asked. "Braden Tull." "And you?" "Zadie Orwood," he smiled faintly. "Zadie, that is a good name." They searched for nearly an hour, both soaked to the elbows with no luck. The river kept its treasures. Finally, Zadie sat back on her heels, defeated. "It is gone." Braden stood, brushing water from his pants. "Then let's get you a new one," he said. "With my name on it." Zadie looked up at him, heart skipping. "What? I mean it," he said, voice steady. "I know I just met you, but I know what I saw. A woman kneeling in the dirt, crying over a ring. That kind of love means something. And I want to be the man you love like that." Zadie stared at him, stunned. "Are you always this forward?" "No," he said, "just when it matters." She laughed, surprised at how light she felt. "You do not even know me. I know enough, and I would like to know more. If you will let me." Zadie stood, brushing mud from her skirt. "You are a stranger, but you helped me when you did not have to. Maybe that is worth something." He tipped his hat. "I would like to know you, Zadie Orwood. Even if I have to start with helping you out of this mess." She glanced back at the river. "Well, you cannot bring back the ring, but I suppose a new one might be possible." A grin pulled at his mouth. "Then I will take that as a start." Braden followed her back to the cabin she shared with her younger brother, who was out hunting. The place was modest, one room, a stone hearth, and a loft where she stored winter apples and dried corn. Zadie lit a lamp and poured him coffee. "How long have you been riding?" she asked, handing him a tin cup. 3 days from south of Helena. I was heading toward Bozeman to look at some land. My army stint ended last year. Thought I would try settling somewhere. Bozeman is crowded. I do not mind people, but I would rather have space." She nodded. "This land belonged to my late husband's folks. They let us stay on after he passed." Braden studied her, careful not to make her uncomfortable. "Was it a good marriage?" She sat across from him, cupping her mug. "It was quiet, steady. I was 17. He was kind, but we never talked much. I do not think he knew how." "You look like someone who wants to be heard." Zadie met his gaze. "And you look like someone who knows how to listen." They were quiet for a moment. Outside, the river kept moving. Inside, something shifted. Braden cleared his throat. "I meant what I said back at the river, I know. I do not expect an answer now, but I would like to stay nearby, help out, fix that fence I saw falling down, maybe get to know your brother when he gets back." Zadie studied him. "And what do I call that?" "Courting. You can call it whatever you want. I just want to be near you." Her eyes softened. "All right, stay. But if you are going to fix fences, you are eating supper with us. You cook." "Only what I can hunt or grow," he smiled. "Then I will earn my meals." By the time her brother returned 3 days later, Braden had already patched the fence, chopped firewood, and helped Zadie clean out the root cellar. Her brother Bennett was wary at first, but Braden worked hard, spoke little, and made no moves that would shame anyone. That earned him a place at the table. One night, as the three of them sat around the fire, Zadie asked, "Why did you leave the army?" Braden stared into the flames. "Lost too many friends. Got tired of killing. Figured peace might be worth chasing." Zadie nodded. "I think I stopped chasing anything after my husband died." Braden looked at her, his voice low. "Then let us chase something together." She turned away, but not before he saw the tear slip down her cheek. 2 weeks passed. Braden stayed in the lean-to beside the barn. He and Zadie worked side by side, harvesting potatoes, tending the chickens, hauling water. He carved her a wooden comb one evening. She cooked his favorite stew the next. They did not speak of love again. But it was there in the way he handed her tools before she asked, in the way she waited to eat until he joined her one morning. Zadie walked out to the river alone. The sun was just rising, pale gold over the trees. She crouched by the water where she had lost the ring. She did not cry, not this time. Braden came up behind her, quiet as ever. "You come out here a lot." "I guess I was still holding on." He knelt beside her. "I am not asking you to forget him. I know." Braden reached into his pocket and pulled out a small leather pouch. Inside was a simple silver ring shaped by hand with the letter T carved on the inside. Zadie stared at it. "Braden, you do not have to wear it, not yet. But I want you to have it, so when you are ready you will know I was too." She took the ring with trembling fingers. "You made this." "I did. Took me all week." Zadie looked up at him, eyes shining. "It is not that I stopped loving my husband, I just did not think I could love anyone else. I do not want to replace anyone, Zadie. I just want to stand beside you." She smiled, tears slipping free. "Then stand beside me now." He took her hand. "Always." And this time, when she looked at the river, she did not feel the loss. She felt the start of something better. The first frost dusted the grass the morning Braden tightened the last gate hinge on the corral. His breath clouded in the air as he stepped back, eyeing the repaired posts with a craftsman's satisfaction. Zadie stood beside the porch with a basket of split kindling balanced on her hip, watching in silence. Her hair was tucked into a red wool scarf, and her cheeks were pink from the cold. "You planning to keep fixing things till the whole homestead's brand new?" she asked. Braden wiped his hands on his trousers. "Thought I might, unless you've got plans for me otherwise." She set the basket down slowly. "The root cellar's holding damp again. Might be mold under the north wall." Braden nodded once. "I'll have a look." Zadie leaned against the porch rail, arms folded. "You always look for what's broken. Is that from the war?" He didn't answer right away. A crow called from a cottonwood down the hill. "Maybe. Guess I got used to keeping things from falling apart," he said. "Even if it's just boards and nails." She stepped down, boots crunching over frost-bitten leaves. "You don't talk about it much. The army. The men you lost." He studied the horizon. "Most folks don't want to hear it." "I'm not most folks." He turned toward her, his expression unreadable though his voice softened. "We buried them in Wyoming, near the Tongue River. 6 of us rode out, only 2 came back. I was one." Zadie's eyes didn't leave his. "You've carried that alone." "That's how it's done, usually." She reached for his hand, her fingers cold against his. "Doesn't have to be." They stayed like that, quiet again, until her brother's voice called from the trees with the morning's hunt slung over his shoulder. Zadie dropped Braden's hand. "I'll start breakfast." Braden didn't move. "Zadie." She paused halfway up the steps. "I sleep easier now." She didn't answer, just gave a small nod and disappeared through the door. Later that week, they rode into town together for flour and lamp oil. The road was rutted from wagon wheels, and the trees along the path were already bare. Zadie rode side saddle on her gray mare while Braden kept pace beside her on a chestnut gelding. "You ever get tired of folks staring?" she asked, nodding toward the approaching roofs of Gallatin. "They're not staring at me. They're wondering why I'm riding in with a man who isn't my kin." Braden adjusted his reins. "And what do you want them to think?" She looked straight ahead. "I haven't decided yet." The general store was quiet except for the scrape of boots on planks and the clink of goods being arranged. Braden lifted the bag of flour onto the counter while Zadie traded a jar of preserved plums for a spool of linen thread. "Mrs. Orwood," the shopkeeper said with a nod, "didn't expect to see you in before the snow." "I'm not waiting on the mountain to close the pass," she said. The man's gaze flicked to Braden. "New help." Braden didn't speak. Zadie's jaw tightened. "Neighbor." "He's been lending a hand since Bennett twisted his ankle." Outside, with the goods bundled on the horses, Braden kept his voice low. "You don't owe anyone an explanation." She secured the saddle strap with a sharp tug. "I know. But folks don't forget quickly around here. I'm not asking you to explain me. Just don't hide me." She met his eyes. "I'm not hiding you, Braden. I'm just not ready for them to call it something I haven't named yet." As they rode back, snow fell in slow spirals. Zadie pulled her shawl tighter and didn't speak again until the cabin came into view. That evening, Braden returned from the barn with a small wooden box. Inside were 3 river stones, smoothed flat and pale from long seasons in the current. He placed them on the hearth beside her chair without a word. She glanced up from her mending. "What are those?" "Markers," he said, "for things lost and things kept." She set her needle down. "You believe in signs. I believe in remembering what matters." She picked up one of the stones and held it in her palm. "And what does this one mean?" He crouched beside her. "That you let me stay." Zadie didn't look away. "And the others?" "One for the man you loved. One for the life you're building." She placed the stone back gently. "And the next one," he reached for her hand, rough thumb brushing her knuckles. "That one's yours to choose." She didn't pull away. Outside, the wind stirred the trees, and the river kept on moving, but inside the cabin, something steadier had taken root. The wind had shifted by late October. It no longer carried the dry smell of sun-warmed earth, but instead moved through the cottonwoods with a low, hollow sound. Zadie stood at the edge of the garden with a burlap sack of turnips slung over one shoulder, watching Braden as he hammered a frame for the smokehouse beside the shed. His coat was off, sleeves rolled to the elbow, and his breath came in soft puffs against the thinning afternoon light. "You ever cure meat before?" she called. He paused, lifting his head. "Helped a settler family near Fort Ellis once. Their boy got scalded, and I traded my help for a place to sleep while he healed." Zadie shifted the sack higher. "You pick up a lot of things just passing through." He tapped the hammer against his thigh. "Was easier than staying anywhere long." She crossed the yard, boots pressing the frost-slick soil. "And now," Braden looked at her directly. "Now I'd rather stay put." She didn't answer, just dropped the sack near the porch steps and disappeared inside. That evening, Bennett carved a checkers board from leftover pine while Braden lit the fire under the kettle. Zadie sat at the table with a stack of mended flour sacks, her hands moving with practiced ease. The room was quiet but not tense, just the kind of quiet that came when 3 people had worked hard all day and didn't need to fill the air with talk. Bennett set down his knife and leaned back. "You plan on building a place of your own, Braden?" Braden stirred the coals. "Eventually, not far if I can help it." Bennett looked to his sister. "You all right with that?" Zadie's needle paused. "I'm not in the habit of turning away someone who's proven useful." Braden smiled faintly, but didn't look up from the fire. Later, after Bennett had gone to the loft, Zadie stepped outside with a shawl wrapped around her shoulders. Braden followed, the cold air biting at their cheeks. "You've been good to him," she said, voice low. "He reminds me of my youngest brother, before the war took him." Zadie turned. "You never said you had family." "I did, 2 brothers. One died at Gettysburg, the other went out to Missouri and never came back. I'm sorry." Braden nodded once. "I don't talk about them much, but you should know." She looked away. "I don't think I know how to be with someone new, not really." "I'm not asking you to know yet." Zadie held his gaze. "But you're still waiting." He reached for her hand, careful and slow. "I'm not waiting. I'm living each day next to you, that's enough." She let him take her hand. "Then stay close." "I'm not going anywhere." The next morning, a letter arrived by courier rare for them, rarer still with Bennett's name on it. Zadie watched his face as he read, his brow furrowing. "What is it?" He handed her the paper. "An uncle down in Wyoming says he's sick, wants me to come." Braden stood from the table. "You need to go," Bennett nodded, folding the letter. "He helped raise us after Pa died. I can't ignore it." Zadie's voice was tight. "You'll be back, soon as I'm able." That night, she packed a small satchel for him, slipping in a hand-stitched scarf and a tin of dried apples. Braden hitched the wagon at dawn. When Bennett climbed aboard, he turned to Braden. "She's stubborn. Don't let her wear herself out." Braden gave a small nod. "She won't." They watched the wagon roll down the ridge, the wheels crunching over frost-glazed grass until it was gone. Inside the cabin, the silence felt wider. Braden rubbed the back of his neck. "I can sleep in the barn again." Zadie was still by the door. "You don't have to." He didn't move. She looked at him then, really looked. "You're not just a man fixing fences anymore." "No," he said. "I don't think I ever was." Zadie walked to the hearth and picked up the stones he'd set there weeks ago. She turned one over in her palm. "I want to carve a 4th, she said. "Something for what's ahead." Braden stepped beside her. "Tell me what you want it to mean." She didn't answer right away, then she placed the stone down gently. "That we've stopped looking back." He reached for her then, both hands around hers. "Then let's start forward." She nodded once, eyes steady. "Together." And in that quiet, with the fire throwing soft light across the room and the cold pressing against the windows, they stayed shoulder to shoulder as the season settled in around them. The snow came fast in the 3rd week of November. It wasn't the kind that drifted soft through the trees. It came thick and wet, turning the roof's thatch brittle and dragging the barn doors half off their hinges. Braden worked from sunup to dusk, keeping the animals dry and the firewood stacked. Zadie patched the chinking where the wind slipped through, fingers raw and aching from the cold. One night, the wind knocked loose a shutter. Zadie woke to it banging against the cabin wall, hollow and rhythmic like a forgotten drum. She threw on her shawl and boots, stepping into the dark. Braden was already outside, hammer in hand, lantern casting long shadows over the snow. "You always this quick?" she asked, pulling the shutter straight with him. He didn't look at her. "When I hear something trying to get in, I move." Zadie watched him secure the hinge, the muscles in his forearm tensing with each strike. "Who do you think's trying to get in?" "Sometimes it's not a who," he said. "Sometimes it's just the past testing the doors." She didn't answer. When he finished, he turned to her, lantern light catching the frost clinging to his collar. "Come back inside," she said, voice low. He followed her in without a word. She hung the lantern and knelt to feed the stove. The fire caught quick, and the orange glow softened the tightness in her features. Braden sat down on the stool near the hearth. "Did you ever want to leave here?" She poured water into the kettle from a clay jug. "Once. Right after the war ended, I thought about heading east, maybe Illinois. But I didn't know anyone there." He rested his elbows on his knees. "You still think about it?" She stood, arms crossed, staring at the floorboards. Not anymore. There's enough to keep me here now. Braden looked up at her, eyes steady. I've been carving that fifth stone. Zadie blinked. What for? For the name you'll carry if you decide to take mine. She sat across from him. That a proposal? No, he said. It's a promise. I won't ask until you're ready to say yes, but I want you to know I see you as mine already. Zadie didn't speak at first. The kettle began to hiss, slow and low. I've been thinking about spring, she said. If the garden comes in right and the hens lay again, we'll be able to trade for a new milk cow. Braden nodded. Something with a strong back and a calm eye. And I'll need help building a second chicken coop. I'll build it. Zadie reached into the basket beside the stove and drew out a folded square of linen. She held it out to him. What's this? He asked. Open it. He untied the cloth and found a small, hand-carved figure, a woman in a long dress, bent slightly at the waist, a bundle cradled in her arms. The work was rough but careful. I made it from the root Bennett pulled from the orchard row, she said. I thought maybe you'd keep it. Something of mine. Braden held the figure with both hands. I will. They sat in silence, the fire snapping low. Then Zadie leaned forward, resting her hand on his knee. I want to wear your name, Braden, he swallowed. Are you sure? She nodded. Not because I lost something. Because I found something better. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the silver ring he'd given her weeks ago. She extended her hand and he slid it onto her finger. It fit snug, warmed by the firelight and the weight of something entirely new. Zadie breathed out, slow and even. There. Now it's real. Braden took her other hand and kissed her palm, rough lips against work-worn skin. Outside, the storm eased. Snow still fell, but the wind had calmed. Inside, there was only the steady beat of the fire and the quiet certainty of two people who had chosen to stay. By mid-December, the snow had risen past the window ledges, and the days shortened until the sun barely touched the tops of the trees before slipping behind the ridge. The cabin, once a place Zadie moved through with quiet routine, had changed. The corners no longer felt empty. When Braden came in from the cold, shaking snow from his coat and knocking ice from his boots, he always brought warmth with him, even before he reached the fire. She had taken to keeping a lamp lit in the window when he was out checking the traps or leading the mule through the pass to check on the line cabin. He never asked her to, and she never said why she did it. But the lamp burned steady just the same. One morning she stood at the stove stirring a pot of barley and dried onion when a knock came at the door. Braden opened it, and there, wrapped in a wool scarf and near frozen, stood a boy no older than 15. His face was raw from wind, and his lashes were crusted in ice. "You Braden Tull?" the boy asked, voice shaking. Braden crouched to eye level. "I am." The boy handed over a folded paper, mouth trembling from cold. "Letter from a man named Sims. Says he served with you. Said if I got into trouble I should find you." Braden took the letter, scanned it fast, then looked to Zadie. "His mother died last month. Sims asked me to make sure the boy had a place." Zadie stepped aside. "Get him by the stove. I'll fetch dry clothes." They didn't ask more questions. The boy who said his name was Ali ate slow but steady, and after his third bowl he curled up on a pallet by the fire and slept hard. Zadie sat beside Braden at the table, the open letter between them. "He trusted you," she said. Braden folded the paper. "He and I were the last ones standing after the blizzard outside Fort Fetterman. We waited 3 days before anyone found us. I owe him." Zadie rested her hand over his. "Then we'll keep the boy." He looked at her, quiet for a moment. "You sure?" "I wouldn't say it if I wasn't." The wind howled outside, but inside the cabin, the kind of silence settled that only comes when two people know they're working toward the same life. Weeks passed. Illy found his place among them with the quiet resilience of someone who'd seen too much too young. He helped Braden mend the broken sled runners, learned to read beside the hearth with Zadie's steady guidance, and took to carving small animals from leftover firewood scraps. One evening, as Zadie shelled beans by the window, she glanced over to where Braden sat sketching plans for a new lean-to. Illy was asleep in the rocking chair, a dog-eared penny novel fallen to the floor beside him. "You ever think about what comes next?" she asked. Braden kept his eyes on the paper. "All the time. For us, I mean." He set down the pencil. "I've been thinking of filing on the quarter section just past the bluff. The land's flat and there's water enough for 2 teams. I could build us something proper." Zadie brushed bean skins into the bowl. "You want to move out?" "No," he said. "I want to give you a home with your name on it, one we choose together. That piece of land's just earth until we make it mean something." She looked toward Illy, then back to Braden. "And the boy, he stays, if he wants to." In the weeks that followed, they prepared for spring. Braden filed the claim at the land office in Bozeman, and Zadie stitched curtains from an old linen tablecloth to hang in the new windows once they were built. The 3 of them rode out to the bluff once the snow melted enough to show the winter-killed grass. Zadie stood with her boots in the soft earth and let the wind touch her face. "I can see a garden right over there," she said, pointing toward the slope. "And chickens behind the shed." Braden took her hand. "And a front porch wide enough to sit on during summer storms." Illy knelt nearby, pressing a carved horse into the mud. "Can I build a tree swing?" Zadie smiled. "You can build 2. They broke ground in April. The cabin rose slowly, each log notched and placed by hand. Braden cut the timber, Illy helped raise the beams, and Zadie laid the stone foundation with her skirt tucked up and arms dusted in mortar. Every board held the shape of their labor. Every nail was a promise. The night they moved in, the sun had just dipped below the pines, and a fire crackled in the newly built hearth. Illy curled up on his straw mattress in the loft, already asleep from the work of the day. Zadie stood at the window, looking out over the darkening slope. Braden came up behind her, arms wrapping around her waist. "You all right?" She leaned back into him. "I've never built something from nothing before, not like this." He kissed the top of her head. "You didn't build it from nothing. You built it from choice." She turned to face him, her hands resting on his chest. "Then I choose this. Every part of it. I choose you." He didn't speak. He just pulled her close, and they stood there as the stars came out one by one, each one catching in the glass like a promise made solid. Years passed. The garden grew, and so did the boy. Illy found a calling in working the land, and when he turned 18, he filed on the plot just east of theirs. He built his house with hands that had learned through watching, and he planted a windbreak of cottonwoods along the ridge. Zadie and Braden's home stood strong through storms and droughts. Its foundation held not just by stone and timber, but by the quiet, daily choosing of one another. Braden carved a cradle when Zadie told him she was expecting, and when their daughter came, she was wrapped in the linen curtain Zadie had once stitched with her own hands. They named her Lark. On warm summer nights, Braden sat with Zadie on the porch swing he built himself, their daughter asleep inside, the scent of wild sage rising from the fields. He would reach for her hand, still strong from work, and hold it like it was the one thing in the world he'd never take for granted. And he never did, not once.